In the spring of 2025, a 52-year-old regional vice president in Charlotte, North Carolina, was clearing $240,000 a year. He still flinched every time he swiped his card at the gas station. Not because the card was ever declined, because some part of him was still waiting for it to be. Here's the gap nobody points out. The median household in America brought in $83,730 last year, according to the Census Bureau. If you're anywhere near six figures, you're already out-earning most of the country by a wide margin. Yet the budgeting instincts that got you here almost never update to match. So why doesn't more money feel like more freedom? Because there's a second skill nobody teaches. The first is earning and saving under scarcity. The second is knowing what to do once scarcity stops being true. Skip that second skill, and you keep operating like you're broke long after the numbers say otherwise, quietly losing years of health, time, and protection you can already afford. My name is Alex. If you've ever looked at a paycheck that should feel like relief and felt tension instead, stay with me. This isn't emotional, it's structural. I'm going to walk you through the 9 things to upgrade first, and the order that protects your money while you do it. Once you see where that old scarcity wiring is quietly costing you, you'll stop guarding every dollar the same way and start putting them to work. There's one asset that runs your entire financial life in the background, and almost nobody thinks to protect it until it's already broken. Upgrade your sleep environment first. What if the thing quietly wrecking your investment portfolio wasn't your allocation at all, but your mattress? Renee Castellano didn't think about her bed much. She was 47, ran a thriving orthodontic practice outside Scottsdale, Arizona, and figured exhaustion was just part of owning a business. Then one morning, she missed a step coming down her own staircase, half asleep before her alarm even went off, and broke 2 ribs on the landing. A completely preventable accident caused by nothing more exotic than years of bad sleep. Here's why that story matters more than it might seem. You spend roughly 1/3 of your life in bed. That makes your sleep system, not your brokerage account, your most used financial asset. Sleep scientist Matthew Walker has pointed out something worth sitting with. Getting less than 6 hours of sleep a night impairs your cognitive performance to a degree comparable with being legally drunk. Think about that the next time you're making a 5-figure decision on 4 hours of sleep. So once the scarcity math stops applying, this is where the money should go first, not last. A Tempur-Pedic Lux Adapt Queen currently runs about $4,899. Add real blackout curtains, a set of high-quality pillows, and a CPAP machine if you snore or stop breathing at night, and you've built an entire recovery system, not just a bed. If you don't pay for that now, you end up paying a cardiologist, a sleep clinic, or an orthopedic surgeon later. That's not a guess. That's just how the body sends its invoice. And it doesn't stop at the mattress. Upgrading your daily health habits matters just as much. Buying higher quality, fresher food. Paying for private health insurance so you get a same-week appointment with a specialist instead of a 2-month wait. Hiring a personal trainer, not for the workout itself, but for the accountability of someone expecting you to show up. Getting a real ergonomic chair so your spine isn't quietly filing a complaint by year 45. None of this is indulgence. It's maintenance on the one asset that generates every other dollar you'll ever make. Once your body is actually recovering instead of just surviving, the next place your money needs to go isn't a thing at all. It's something you can't buy back once it's gone. Start paying to buy time. Ever notice how the people who seem to have the most money also seem to have the most time? That's not a coincidence. It's a formula. Take Devin Marsh. He's a 44-year-old IT director outside Columbus, Ohio, and for years he mowed his own lawn, fixed his own garbage disposal, and drove himself to the airport to save $40 on parking. He was proud of it, honestly. It felt responsible. But Devin was making about $170,000 a year, and he was spending his Saturdays doing $30 work. Here's how you catch that in your own life. Take your total annual income and divide it by the hours you actually work, usually around 2,000 hours a year for a full-time job. That number is your effective hourly rate. For Devin, $170,000 divided by 2,000 hours comes out to $85 an hour. Once you know that number, the rule is simple. Anything you can hire out for less than that rate, you outsource immediately. Right now, a decent handyman in most U.S. markets runs somewhere between $50 and $125 an hour, and a solid house cleaning crew runs $45 to $75 an hour. Say, Devin hires a handyman at $65 an hour to deal with that leaking disposal. He's not spending money. He's capturing a $20 an hour spread and getting his Saturday back in the process. Would you turn down a stock that paid you $20 for every dollar you put in? Because that's basically what's happening here. And this isn't only about physical chores. It's about the stuff that quietly drains you before you even notice it's gone. Ordering dinner delivered on the one night everyone's exhausted, and tempers are short. Paying for a laundry service during a brutal work stretch. That's not laziness. That's a deliberate trade, protecting the one resource you can never earn back, no matter how good your next quarter is. Because here's the uncomfortable truth about money. You can always make more of it. You cannot make up more hours. Every dollar you spend below your effective rate is really a dollar spent buying back a piece of your own life. Once you've bought back the hours, the next question is what you do with them. And that starts with the machine that's generating the income in the first place. Pay for faster medical access. Quick question. If a lump showed up somewhere it shouldn't, how many weeks would you be willing to wait for someone to actually look at it? Tasha Whitfield found out the hard way. She was 51, worked as a marketing consultant outside Denver, Colorado, and had decent insurance through her old corporate job. When she noticed something was off during a routine checkup, her primary care doctor referred her to a specialist. The wait for that appointment was 11 weeks. 11 weeks of not knowing, inside a system that was in no particular hurry to find out. That's the part conventional insurance rarely tells you. Coverage is not the same thing as access. You can have a great plan and still sit in a queue behind 2,000 other patients on the same doctor's panel, because your physician simply doesn't have the bandwidth to see you sooner. This is exactly why concierge medicine exists. And once you're financially stable, it stops being a luxury and starts being basic infrastructure. Here's the mechanism. A doctor who normally manages 2,500 patients drops that number down to around 600 in exchange for an annual membership. Entry-level concierge practices currently run somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000 a year. MD, VIP affiliated doctors often land closer to $2,000 to $2,300. That's not replacing your insurance. Your insurance still covers the labs, the imaging, and the actual specialist visit. What you're buying is the front door. Same day or next day appointments. 30 to 60 minutes with your doctor instead of a rushed 15. A cell phone number that actually gets answered. Now, is that expensive? Sure. Is it more expensive than an 11-week wait, turning into a problem that could have been caught early? Not even close. Pay a specialist now, or pay a hospital later, usually for a much bigger bill and a much smaller set of options. Your body sends an invoice either way. You just get to choose whether you pay it on your terms or on its terms. Once your health is handled, the next upgrade isn't about your body at all. It's about the machine that actually earns the money in the first place. Invest directly in your skills. Here's a question worth sitting with. If you could pay $10,000 today to make an extra $34,000 over the next few years, would you actually do it? Or would you talk yourself out of it? Grant Okafor almost talked himself out of it. He's a 46-year-old sales director in Austin, Texas, and for years, he treated his own skill set like something that just happened, not something you actively fund. Then he signed up for a 4-month executive coaching program, structured around 11 sessions, for $7,500. According to the International Coaching Federation, that kind of investment carries a median return of about 3.5 times the money spent, not hype, a documented median. You are the machine that generates your income. Nobody upgrades a machine by hoping it improves on its own. So where does the money actually go? Skills with high return. Right now, things like AI automation and financial modeling are worth learning directly, not absorbing passively through a podcast in the background. Negotiation training matters more than people admit, because most raises and promotions are decided in a single 15-minute conversation, and almost nobody prepares for it the way they prepare for a client pitch. Paying for a mastermind group or a mentorship, even at a few $1,000s a year, can compress a decade of trial and error into a handful of conversations with someone who already made the expensive mistakes for you. And don't underestimate reading. A well-chosen biography of someone who has already built what you're trying to build hands you decades of lived judgment for the price of a few evenings. Your tools matter here too. And this is where people underspend without realizing it. A sluggish 5-year-old laptop is costing you more in wasted hours than the $600 or $700 you'd save by not replacing it. A current MacBook Pro with the M4 Max chip pays for itself in the first month you're not waiting on it to render a deck. If your work involves any kind of content or client-facing visuals, a Sony A7 IV camera changes what you're able to produce without hiring anyone. None of this is about looking busy. It's about compounding. Every dollar here doesn't just get spent, it raises the ceiling on every dollar you'll make after it. Once the machine itself is sharper, the next upgrade isn't about what you know. It's about how fast people decide to trust you before you've said a word. Dress like you've already arrived. Would a client hand you a $2 million listing if you showed up looking like you weren't sure you belonged in the room? Renata Cole found out that mattered more than she expected. She's a 49-year-old real estate broker in Miami, Florida. Sharp, capable, closing deals for over a decade. But for years, she wore whatever was clean that morning, figuring her results should speak for themselves. Then she noticed something. The agents pulling in the waterfront listings weren't necessarily better at the job. They just looked like people who already lived in that world. There's a real psychological reason for that. And it's not vanity. Researchers call it enclothed cognition. And it's exactly what it sounds like. What you wear doesn't just change how other people see you. It changes how you carry yourself, how you speak, even how you make decisions. Put someone in well-tailored clothing, and their posture straightens before they've said a word. So Renata upgraded, deliberately. A properly tailored navy suit from a house like Canali replaced the off-the-rack version she'd worn for years. She bought a Rolex Date, just 41, currently retailing around $11,650. Not as a flex, but because a client glancing at your wrist during a negotiation is registering information, whether you meant to send it or not. And for client meetings, she carries a Chanel Medium Classic Flap, now retailing for nearly $11,700. Because whether that's fair or not, people read a handbag the same way they read a firm handshake. Here's the part worth sitting with for a second. None of this changed Renata's actual skill. What it changed was how quickly a new client trusted that skill existed before she'd proven anything. In high-stakes rooms, first impressions aren't decoration. They're data other people use to make fast decisions about you. And most of the time, you don't get a second shot at that first read. Is any of this required? No. Plenty of brilliant professionals dress plainly and do just fine. But once the money is there and the stakes are high, this stops being about vanity and becomes about signal. You are, whether you like it or not, always communicating something the moment you walk into a room. Once people trust you before you've said a word, the next signal they read is what you're driving up to that meeting in. Upgrade the car you drive. Would you trust your life savings to a financial advisor who pulled up to the meeting in a car that wouldn't pass inspection? Dana Whitcomb never thought about it that way until a client actually said it out loud. Dana owns a dental practice outside Nashville, Tennessee, and for 11 years drove the same aging minivan, mostly out of habit and a little out of guilt about spending money on herself. Then a new patient, a contractor referring half his crew to her practice, mentioned offhand that he almost didn't trust a dentist who couldn't afford a decent car. He was joking, mostly. Here's the thing about a vehicle once you're financially stable. It's not a toy, and it's not really about ego either. It's a tool that quietly reports information about you every single time you show up somewhere. So Dana upgraded to a 2026 BMW 530i, which currently starts around $62,800, with all-wheel drive included. Not a flashy choice, not a status trophy, just a well-built, reliable sedan that doesn't break down before a Saturday morning surgery, doesn't need a loaner while it's in the shop, and doesn't make a referring patient quietly reconsider. Now, does the actual car matter to your competence? Of course not. But perception moves faster than proof, especially the first time someone meets you. A dependable, well-maintained car signals stability. An unreliable one raises a question nobody says out loud, but everybody notices. There's also a much less emotional argument here, and it's worth saying plainly. An old, poorly maintained vehicle costs you in ways that don't show up on a single receipt. Missed appointments from breakdowns, emergency repair bills that spike without warning, the hours lost sitting in a waiting room at the shop instead of running your business. A newer, reliable car with a real warranty converts all of that chaos into one predictable monthly number. This isn't permission to overspend on something with 4 wheels and a spoiler. It's permission to stop treating basic reliability like an indulgence once you can actually afford it. There's a real difference between buying a car to impress people and buying one. So your business stops losing money to a vehicle that's quietly falling apart. Once the way you show up is finally working for you instead of against you, the next place your money needs to go isn't visible at all. It's the part of your finances built to survive a mistake you never see coming. Hire a CPA who fights. Here's a question that sounds simple until you actually try to answer it. At what income does the IRS start expecting you to think like a business, even if you're not one? Wesley Turnbull found out the expensive way. He runs a commercial HVAC company outside Kansas City, Missouri, and for years he filed his own taxes with software, the same way he had since his 20s. It worked fine when his income was simple. It stopped working the year his business net income crossed into six figures, and he picked up 2 rental properties on the side. Wesley missed a quarterly estimated payment, misjudged his bracket, and ended up owing a penalty north of $25,000 on top of the tax itself. Here's the part that stings the most. It was completely avoidable. Right now, the federal brackets step up in ways that catch people off guard once income climbs. For a single filer, the 24% bracket runs up to roughly $201,775. And above that, the rate jumps again. Cross one of those lines without adjusting your withholding or estimated payments, and you're not just paying more tax. You're paying penalties for underpaying along the way. This is exactly why a good CPA earns their fee many times over. For a business owner with rental income and multiple schedules, expect to pay somewhere between $800 and $2,500 a year, sometimes more for complex situations. That might sound steep next to a $40 software subscription, but a CPA isn't just filing paperwork. They're proactively structuring your income, timing your deductions, and catching bracket creep before it becomes a surprise bill with your name on it. Think about it this way. Would you rather pay a professional a couple of $1,000s to plan, or pay the government $25,000 to explain what happens when nobody does? Beyond the CPA relationship, this is also where the rest of your financial infrastructure needs attention. Maximize your retirement plan, matching before a bracket jump eats into it. Getting real legal review on contracts before a dispute turns expensive. None of this is glamorous, but it's the difference between money that quietly leaks out of your life and money that stays exactly where you put it. Once your taxes stop being a yearly ambush, the next thing worth protecting isn't your income at all. It's everything you'd lose control of the moment something unexpected happens to you. Lock down your legal protection. Quick, uncomfortable question. If something happened to you tomorrow, would anyone actually know where your accounts are, let alone how to access them? Grace Millhouse didn't. Not about her own situation, but about her business partners. Grace runs a specialty flooring company outside Toledo, Ohio, and 2 years ago, her co-owner died suddenly at 51, with no will, no updated beneficiary forms, and no buy-sell agreement between them. What followed wasn't just grief. It was 8 months of frozen accounts, a probate court, and a surviving spouse who had no idea what her husband actually owned or how the business was supposed to keep running without him. None of that had to happen. And once you've built real wealth, protecting it stops being optional paperwork and starts being basic infrastructure. The same as insurance on a building. Start with a real estate attorney and a business attorney reviewing your contracts before a dispute happens, not after. A lawsuit you never see coming is expensive. A lawsuit your contracts already anticipated is just a formality. Then there's the part almost everyone puts off: wills, trusts, and healthcare directives. This isn't only for people with private jets and Hamptons houses. It's for anyone who doesn't want a probate judge, rather than their own family, deciding who gets what and who makes medical decisions if they can't. Here's a number worth sitting with. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent survey of consumer finances, partnered households currently carry a median net worth of about $316,000, compared with roughly $74,000 for single households. That's more than 4 times the wealth. Some of that gap is due to dual income and shared expenses. But a real piece of it is structural. Married couples default into legal and financial protections that single people have to build deliberately, on purpose, with a lawyer, because nobody hands them to them automatically. So whether you're building that protection through a spouse, a business partner agreement, or your own standalone estate plan, the point is the same. You worked hard to build this. Don't let a courtroom decide what happens to it, because you never wrote anything down. Once your money and your family are actually protected on paper, the last upgrade isn't about defense at all. It's about finally letting yourself enjoy what you built it for in the first place. Fund experiences over more things. Here's a strange question. If you could either buy a $9 million house in Naples, Florida, or spend a fraction of that giving your family a trip they'd talk about for the next 20 years, which one actually pays you back? Sandra Kowalski found herself asking exactly that. She's a 56-year-old orthopedic surgeon in Scottsdale, Arizona, and last winter she toured a listing in Port Royal, Naples, one of the most exclusive waterfront enclaves in the country, priced at $9,300,000. Gorgeous house, private dock, the whole picture. She walked the property, sat with it for a week, and didn't buy it. Not because she couldn't, because something about it felt like it would just become normal, the same way her current home had. That instinct turned out to be backed by real psychology. Researchers describe it as the aftertaste of a purchase. A physical object gives you a sharp burst of pleasure, and then, almost immediately, your brain adjusts, and the object quietly becomes the new baseline. A house is beautiful for a few months, then it's just where you live. An experience works the opposite way. The memory of it doesn't flatten out. It often gets better with time, especially the ones shared with people you love. So before you spend on more square footage, look at what's already annoying you in the home you have. Fix the cabinet door that's been sticking for 2 years. Upgrade the kitchen with real knives and pans so cooking stops being a chore. Add a second monitor and better lighting to the room where you actually work. And then put real money toward the things that exist purely to bring you joy, whether that's a proper set of Titleist golf clubs or swim lessons you've been putting off for your kids. Sandra ended up doing something simpler than the mansion, a 2-week trip to Portugal with her whole family, and a meaningful check written to the children's hospital where she trained. Both of those, she says, still feel just as good today as they did the moment she committed to them. And that, more than any single purchase on this list, might be the real test of whether money is working for you. Not what it buys, but who you become and who you help along the way. The upgrade was never about the money. Here's the realization underneath all 9 of these. Scarcity taught you how to survive. It never taught you what to do once you'd already won that fight. The tightness you still feel at 6 figures isn't a math problem. It's an outdated setting nobody told you to switch off. A few things worth holding on to. Your body is the asset every other asset depends on. The time you buy back never returns to the market. Trust gets extended before you've said a word. And the protection you never touch is still working, every single day, whether you notice it or not. So here's what to watch for. The next time you flinch at a price that your own numbers say you can afford, pause. Ask whether that's discipline talking or just an old habit that forgot to update itself. There's a harder version of this same question waiting for you. One about what happens to everything you've built after you're no longer the one managing it. That's a conversation for another day. If any of this landed, you know what to do with it. I'll see you in the next one.